Good morning. It is just great to see you here again today. The story I want to think about this morning is Jesus' baptism by the Holy Spirit. A few of the meditations last week have been continuing looking at this gift of the Holy Spirit. And once again, I want to maybe come at this story from a slightly different angle. I think in the church that we all like baptisms because as the child or a person comes forth for baptism, we see in that moment of baptism great possibility and an assurance that the faith continues through another soul. One thing that has always struck me is the phrase in some of the baptismal services when at the end of the baptism, the minister looks at the congregation and says, "Remember your baptism and give thanks." While many of us were baptized as infants, how are we to remember? It is sometimes difficult in modern life, amidst the conflicting claims and confusion of names, to remember who we are. We are forever answering to some false name, forever misunderstanding who we are and by whom we are named. It is easy to forget. We're told that big question with youth today is, who am I? A pressing question which I'm sure many of us faced as we grew through adolescence. The search for self, the quest for one's identity, consumes much of our teenage years. And today there are innumerable causes, groups, philosophies, and cults that are willing and ready to tell us who we are. Listen to some of these voices. Who am I? You are mostly a sexual being. The movies, the soap operas, and the songs tell us, lusting and being lusted after. Your body is the most important possession. Nurture it, love it, display it, caress it, show it off. Who am I? You are mostly a brain, mostly a rational thinking, reasoning being, absorbing facts and figures, going to school, endless school, bowing down before the temples of Athena, living only to learn, sadly not learning to live. It's not who you are, but what you know, that quite often our education system is teaching us. Who am I? You are mostly a maker and spender of money, capitalist, doer, producer, obtainer of stereos, cars with bucket seats and racing stripes, working to pay down your mortgage, the advertisers tell us. Who am I? You are the self-centered, autonomous, self-made being, this modern scientific secular world tells us. Nobody will look out for you but you. You are the most important project in your life. Nurture, care for, and love your adorable me. Look out for number one. Satisfy, soothe, make happy, thrill, care for your lonely me. As we go on in life, we realize that the identity question of who am I is not over and done with by age 21. I know people much later in life who still seek the question, still experiment with their lives, mixing in this and that, hoping that the whole thing will gel someday. They keep trying to change, like Proteus, the Greek hero of mythology, who could change his shape at will. Many of us continually changing our shapes to suit the situation, going through endless metamorphoses as the situation demands. To the pressing question, who am I? The church has traditionally responded, you are baptized. The way for the Christian to find out who he or she is not to go off on the latest kick, but rather to come to the font and to look into those graceful waters. The reflection of yourself that you see there is who you really are. Who am I? You are someone to whom a name has been given. When a child is brought forth in baptism, we say they're christened. They are given a Christian name by the church. In ancient times, it was the church that named the child, often in memory of some favorite saint. In the early church, after a conversion experience, a person often changed their name to represent the newness of their life. Life becomes a long process of trying out that name on for size, growing up to it, answering to it, giving it meaning by the way we live our lives. I sometimes think that the names which we baptize our children with sound awfully big for the little baby, but the child will grow to the name, filling it out until it feels normal. It fits, and we could not imagine the person with any other name. In our society, baptism has become the rite, the occasion for naming. At baptism, we are also given the name Christian. In baptizing, the church makes a radically different statement about who we are than the world does. We are telling the baptized person that his or her identity is a gift given by the church, bestowed upon them by grace. Many of us who have believed that identity is a personal discovery, a result of rooting around in the dark corners of our own egos, will be shocked to learn that our identity is given rather than earned. A Christian name is given. A Christian identity is given, and both have to be grown into until they fit well. Who am I? Baptism says that not only are we the ones to whom a name has been given, but also that we are royalty. Yes, we sin. Yes, we live less righteously than we should. But sin troubles us because we know that we are made for something better. Our sin troubles us because it does not fit who we are as people who carry the name Christian. It does not fit God's people. The Christian message is not that we should try hard to act like somebody. The Christian message is quite simply that we are somebody. Jesse Jackson, American preacher and former presidential candidate, pastors an inner city congregation in Chicago. He begins every service by shouting, "I was nobody," to which the congregation shouts back, "But now, thank God, I'm somebody." The great reformer, Martin Luther, when struggling through his dark nights of the soul, would sometimes touch his forehead and say to himself, "Martin, be calm. You are baptized." In our times of doubt, inner turmoil, hopelessness, confusion, pandemic, we too would do well to touch our foreheads where the cross, the sign and seal of baptism, was made, and remember our baptism. In Alex Haley's book, Roots, there is a memorable scene the night the slave, Kunta Kinte, drove his master to a ball at a big plantation house. Kunta Kinte heard the music from inside the house, music from the white folks' dance. He parked the buggy and settled down to wait out the long night of his master's revelry. While he sat in the buggy, he heard other music coming from the slaves' quarters, the little cabins behind the big house. It was different music, music with a different rhythm. He felt his legs carry him down the path towards those cabins. There he found a man playing African music, the music which he remembered hearing in Africa as a child, the music he had almost forgotten. Kunta Kinte found that the man was from his area of Africa. They talked excitedly in his native language of home and the things of home. That night, after returning from the dance, Kunta Kinte went home changed. He lay upon the dirt floor of his little cabin and wept, weeping in sadness that he had almost forgotten, weeping in joy that he had at last remembered. The terrifying, degrading experience of slavery had almost obliterated his memory of who he was, but the music had helped him remember. I think this is a baptismal parable. How easy it is in the midst of this life to forget who you are and whose you are. So the church is here to remind you, to remind one another that God has named us and seeks us and loves us with only one good reason in mind, so that God might love us for all eternity. Remember your baptism and give thanks, for this is who you are. Amen. And now may God keep you in God's sights until we meet again. I'll see you tomorrow.